It all started on an ordinary Tuesday morning, the kind that fools you into thinking life is calm and predictable. I was sitting in the doctor's waiting room, flipping through a magazine I didn't really care about, when my phone rang. It was my daughter, Angela. At first, I smiled. I hadn't heard from her in a few days, and hearing her voice usually brightened my mood. But that day, something was different. Her tone was cold, clipped, almost rehearsed. "Mom," she said flatly, "I wanted to tell you we're selling your beach house. And your truck too. We already found a buyer." I blinked, not sure if I'd heard her right. "You're what?" "We need the money," she continued, her voice completely detached. "Edward's job isn't stable right now, and it's too much for you to maintain anyway. You'll thank us later. Oh, and we're flying to Europe tomorrow. I'll call when we settle in. Love you." Click. That was it. No discussion, no goodbye. Just silence and the hum of the waiting room air conditioner. For a long time, I sat there frozen, my heart pounding in disbelief. That beach house wasn't just a property, it was our dream. My late husband, Robert, and I had built it together brick by brick. We saved for years, worked overtime, gave up vacations, all to own that little slice of ocean peace. And now my daughter, my only child, had sold it behind my back. I wanted to scream, but instead, I smiled to myself. Not because I was okay, but because I suddenly remembered who I was. My name is Antonia Brooks, and I am no fool. When Robert passed away 6 months ago, I'd fallen into a fog of grief. Angela had stepped in to help with the paperwork, the bank accounts, the estate. I trusted her completely. I signed what she asked, never questioning, because that's what mothers do, they trust. But sitting in that sterile doctor's office, I realized I'd trusted the wrong person. Later that night, after coming home to a house that suddenly felt too quiet, I poured myself a cup of tea and sat by the fireplace. The sound of the ocean outside was faint, but it reminded me of Robert's laughter, of all our nights spent dreaming about the future. That's when I remembered something, a manila envelope he'd given me just 3 days before his death. He'd said, "Antonia, don't open this unless something doesn't feel right." At the time, I thought he was just being sentimental. But now, something definitely didn't feel right. I went to the dresser, opened the drawer, and there it was, the same sealed envelope, untouched, waiting. My hands trembled as I held it. Robert's handwriting stared back at me, steady and familiar. I sat down, the room quiet except for the ticking clock, and slowly tore it open. Inside, there was a letter, and what I read made my blood run cold. Because inside that envelope wasn't just a message from my husband, it was a secret that would change everything I thought I knew about my family. Inside the envelope was a neatly folded letter written in Robert's careful handwriting, and beneath it, several official-looking papers. I took a deep breath and began to read. "My dearest Antonia, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone. Please don't be sad, my love. I didn't tell you everything because I wanted your heart to stay light. Over the years, I quietly invested our savings in a few places, some small, some big. You are not only taken care of, you are far wealthier than you realize. Every property, every share, every asset is in your name. Take this as my last gift to you, security, independence, and peace of mind. And one more thing, never let anyone, not even Angela, handle what's rightfully yours. She means well, but her husband, Edward. I've always had my doubts about him." I stopped reading, my fingers trembling. My husband, the same man who had driven a city bus for 40 years, had secretly built an empire in silence. I turned the pages beneath the letter and my jaw nearly dropped. There were ownership deeds, stock certificates, and bank documents, not just for our beach house, but for several other properties I had never even heard of. And one of them made my heart stop, the apartment complex where Angela and Edward lived. I sat back, stunned. All this time, Angela believed she was helping me manage my limited finances, when in truth, everything she touched already belonged to me. That realization didn't bring anger. It brought clarity. For the first time in months, my grief cleared, and I felt Robert's presence beside me, steady, protective, and patient. He had seen this coming, hadn't he? I stayed up late that night, spreading the documents across the kitchen table, studying every signature and date. That's when I noticed something odd, a legal document I didn't remember signing. It was a power of attorney, granting Angela full control of my assets. My hands went cold. I didn't remember signing that. Robert's words echoed in my mind, never let anyone handle what's yours. I picked up the phone and called the one person Robert had always trusted with our affairs, his lawyer, Mr. Peterson. "Mrs. Brooks," his familiar voice said when he answered. "It's been a long time." "Mr. Peterson," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "I found something. Something Robert left for me. I think I need your help." "Of course," he said warmly. "Come by my office tomorrow morning. Bring everything." After I hung up, I stared at the documents again. The ink, the signatures, the hidden wealth, it all felt unreal. I thought about Angela's cold voice on the phone, her confidence when she said, "You'll thank us later." She had no idea what I held in my hands now. I closed the envelope carefully and tucked it into my handbag. Then I turned off the lights and sat in the dark for a while, listening to the wind rattle against the windows. For the first time since Robert's death, I wasn't broken. I wasn't even sad. I was awake, fully awake. Tomorrow, I would see Mr. Peterson. And once I did, the truth behind my daughter's betrayal would begin to unravel, piece by piece. But what I didn't know then was that meeting would set off a chain of events that would turn my quiet revenge into something much bigger than I ever imagined. The next morning, I dressed in my best wine-colored dress, the one Robert always said made me look ready to take on the world. I tucked the envelope safely into my handbag and called a cab to Mr. Peterson's office downtown. The ride felt long. Every passing streetlight reflected off the car window, and I caught my reflection staring back, an old woman who had lost everything, or maybe, just discovered she never had. When I arrived, Mr. Peterson greeted me warmly. His office hadn't changed in years, same old oak desk, same faint smell of coffee and paper. "Mrs. Brooks," he said, standing to shake my hand, "it's good to see you. How have you been holding up?" "I've had better weeks," I said with a small smile. "But I found something Robert left for me." His brow lifted. "Ah, Robert. A smart man, always thinking ahead. Let's see what he left." I handed him the envelope and watched as he read the letter carefully, his expression shifting from curiosity to quiet admiration. Then he turned to the documents. "Mrs. Brooks," he said slowly, "your husband was a remarkable planner. These papers show multiple investments, all legitimate and all in your name. You own several properties, stock in 3 companies, and, well, this is interesting." He pointed to one page. "This apartment complex here, isn't that where your daughter lives?" I nodded silently. He leaned back in his chair. "It appears Robert bought that property through a holding company registered under your name years ago. Which means, technically, your daughter's home belongs to you." A strange mix of sadness and satisfaction washed over me. So she's been living on what she thought was hers, when it was mine all along. Mr. Peterson nodded. "It happens more than you'd think. But, Mrs. Brooks, there's something else. He handed me another paper, the power of attorney I had discovered the night before. "Did you really sign this?" he asked gently. I looked closely at the signature. It looked like mine, but something felt off. The way the letters looped, the way the ink spread. "No," I said firmly. "I never signed that." He sighed. "Then I'm afraid your daughter, or someone close to her, may have forged your signature. This document is what allowed them to sell your beach house and vehicle legally." I felt a chill crawl up my spine. "Can we undo it?" He nodded. "We can, but we'll need to proceed carefully. We'll reclaim your assets quietly first, then handle the forgery once we have proof." I nodded slowly, feeling the old spark of strength returning. "Good. I don't want to ruin her life, Mr. Peterson. I just want her to understand what she did." He smiled faintly. "Understood, Mrs. Brooks. Quiet justice, the best kind." When I left his office, the city air felt different, sharp and alive. I wasn't a grieving widow anymore. I was a woman with purpose. I took a deep breath, clutching my handbag as I stepped onto the sidewalk. The morning sun reflected off the shop windows, and for the first time in months, I felt Robert beside me again, like a whisper in the wind saying, "That's my girl." As I hailed a cab, I looked up at the skyline and smiled. My daughter thought she had taken everything from me. She had no idea what was coming. Because by the time she came back from Europe, the home she stole from me would be the very one she found herself locked out of. The days that followed were quiet, almost too quiet. From the outside, nothing had changed. I still went on my morning walks, still waved at my neighbors, still smiled politely at the grocery store clerk who asked how I was doing. But inside, everything was different. Every night, after dinner, I'd sit at the kitchen table with a cup of tea and those documents spread out before me. Each signature, each transaction, each name on those pages was a reminder that my daughter had traded love for greed. And yet, I didn't feel hate. Not yet. What I felt was clarity. Mr. Peterson called a few days later with an update. "Mrs. Brooks," he said, "we've officially reversed the sale of the beach house. The buyers were compensated, and the deed is back under your name." The process was smooth. I let out a long breath. "Thank you, Mr. Peterson. That house meant everything to me." He hesitated before continuing. "There's more. We've secured control of your bank accounts, investments, and property shares. Everything is under your sole authority now." A small smile crept across my face. "Good. I want to keep it that way." He chuckled softly. "Understood. Anything else you'd like me to do?" "Yes," I said. "The apartment building, the one my daughter lives in. Can we quietly transfer its management to me?" He paused, clearly sensing where I was going. "Yes, we can. You'll need to sign a few forms. Would you like me to prepare them?" "Please do," I said. "And, Mr. Peterson, keep my name out of it for now." When I hung up, I sat in silence for a long moment. I could almost hear Robert's voice whispering, "Don't let anger guide you, Tony. Let wisdom do it." So that's what I did. I didn't lash out. I didn't confront Angela. I waited. A week later, I received word that the transfer was complete. I now had full control of the building, her building. I walked to the window and stared out at the horizon, the sunset painting the sky in orange and gold. The world outside looked so peaceful, no one could have guessed that, quietly, I was taking back everything she stole. That evening, my neighbor Aurora stopped by with her usual gossip. "Antonia," she said, plopping herself down on the couch. Did you hear? Your daughter and that husband of hers are in Europe. Posting pictures like movie stars. Paris, Rome, champagne on yachts, the works. I smiled, stirring my tea. Oh, I'm happy for them. They deserve the best, I said calmly. Aurora frowned. I don't know, Antonia. Something about that man, Edward, he gives me bad vibes. Too polished. Too charming. You know the type. I nodded slowly. Yes, I know the type. When she left, I looked through the window again. The night had fallen, and the street lamps were glowing softly. I thought about Angela, living her dream life, probably thinking her mother was struggling to survive. I almost laughed. Because soon enough, reality would come knocking. And when it did, it would carry my name. I took one last sip of tea, letting the warmth settle me. Everything was falling into place exactly as Robert planned, and exactly as I intended. But before my quiet revenge could begin, a single phone call would change the game and reveal a truth that would make even my late husband's letter feel like a warning. It was late afternoon when the phone rang. The sound startled me, sharp and sudden, cutting through the calm hum of my little living room. I wiped my hands on a towel and picked it up. Mrs. Brooks, a man's voice said. This is Detective Harris from the county department. Do you have a moment? Detective. The word instantly tightened my chest. Yes, I said slowly. What is this about? I'm afraid this concerns your son-in-law, Edward Collins. Of course it did. I'd been waiting for something like this. What happened? I asked, trying to keep my tone calm. There have been reports of fraudulent investments linked to his company, the detective explained. Several clients have filed complaints. Your daughter's name appears on some documents. We believe she may have been unknowingly involved. My heart sank, even though I wasn't surprised. Unknowingly? I repeated. Yes, ma'am. From what we've gathered, Edward's been using her as a cover, moving funds and property under her signature. We'd like to speak with you to confirm some details about the assets he recently liquidated, including your beach house and truck. I exhaled slowly. Detective, I'm aware of what he did. And I assure you, neither of those sales were authorized by me. There was a pause. Then you might have just helped us a great deal, Mrs. Brooks. Could you come down to the station tomorrow to make a statement? Of course, I said. I'll be there. When I hung up, I just stood there for a long moment, gripping the phone like it was an anchor. I should have felt vindicated, proof that Robert's instincts had been right. But instead, all I felt was exhaustion. My daughter was tangled in something far bigger than greed. She was living with a man who'd built his life on lies. That night, I sat by the fireplace, holding Robert's wedding ring between my fingers. You warned me about him, I whispered. You saw it long before I did. I thought about Angela, how bright and hopeful she'd been as a little girl. The way she used to dance barefoot on the beach, laughing as the waves chased her. Somewhere along the way, she'd lost that innocence. And Edward had fed on that, her need to belong, to be admired, to live large. But now, her perfect world was crumbling. And I had to decide, was I going to watch it fall, or was I going to catch her before she hit the ground? The next morning, I dressed in my best coat and took a cab to the station. Detective Harris was polite, professional. He asked questions about my finances, about the power of attorney, about the properties Edward had touched. By the end of the meeting, he said quietly, Mrs. Brooks, your daughter's not the criminal here. She's a victim. But if she doesn't cooperate, she might go down with him. I nodded slowly. She'll cooperate, I said. I'll make sure of it. He gave me a small smile. You sound like a woman who always gets things done. When I stepped outside, the morning air was sharp and cold. I looked up at the cloudy sky and whispered, I'm coming for you, Angela, but not to punish you. To save you. Still, a voice deep down reminded me, every action has its price. And this time, saving her might mean losing her forever. Because while I was preparing to rescue my daughter from the man who deceived her, I had no idea that he was already one step ahead, and watching me, too. 2 days after speaking with Detective Harris, I finally got the call I'd been waiting for, and dreading. Mom, the voice on the other end trembled. It's me. Angela. For a moment, I couldn't speak. I just stood there in my quiet kitchen, the sound of her voice pulling me back through years of memories, birthdays, school plays, Christmas mornings. Then I remembered the woman she'd become. Angela, I said softly, are you all right? There was a pause. Not really. I'm in trouble, Mom. Edward disappeared. His office is empty. The police came by the apartment asking questions. I don't know what to do. I sank slowly into a chair. Then listen to me carefully. Don't run. Don't lie. Go to the authorities and tell them everything you know. Her voice cracked. I'm scared, Mom. They think I was part of it. But I didn't know what he was doing. He said everything was legal, that it was just business paperwork. I sighed, rubbing my forehead. Angela, do you remember that power of attorney form you had me sign after your father's funeral? Yes, she said weakly. It was forged. I never signed that document. And that's what Edward used to sell my house and my truck. There was silence, the kind that feels like time itself holding its breath. Mom, she whispered, her voice breaking. I didn't know. I swear, I didn't know he'd do that to you. I believe you, I said gently. But believing you won't stop the consequences. You need to tell the police the truth, before they find him, or before he finds you. She gasped softly. What do you mean find me? Angela, I said, choosing my words carefully, Edward's not just running from the law. He's running from everyone he stole from. People like that don't leave quietly. I could hear her breathing quicken. Mom, please, can I come home? Just for a while. I don't feel safe here. My heart ached. Part of me wanted to say no, to let her sit in the mess she'd made. But then I remembered Robert's last words, take care of her, no matter what. Yes, I said finally. Come home. You'll be safe here. When I hung up, I sat there staring at the phone for a long time. The house was quiet except for the ticking clock on the mantel. I didn't know what kind of storm Angela was bringing with her, but I knew I had to face it. That night, I prepared the guest room. Fresh sheets, clean towels, a lamp by the window. As I straightened the pillows, I thought about all the nights I'd done this when she was little. How many times had I tucked her in, promising her that monsters weren't real? But this time, the monster was real, and it wore a charming smile and an expensive suit. The next morning, I heard a car pull up. I went to the window and saw Angela step out, dragging a single suitcase. Her face was pale, her eyes red and tired. She looked like a ghost of herself. When she reached the porch, I opened the door. She froze, then whispered, Mom. I stepped aside. Come in, Angela. She burst into tears and hugged me tight, her whole body shaking. I'm so sorry, she sobbed. I ruined everything. I held her, not as the betrayed mother, but as the only person she had left. "No," I said softly. "You're going to fix it." But what I didn't know then was that Edward wasn't done with either of us. And the next knock on that door wouldn't be hers. Having Angela back in the house felt strange, like living with both the past and the present under one roof. Every morning, I'd find her sitting quietly at the kitchen table, clutching her coffee cup like it was keeping her alive. She barely spoke, and when she did, her voice carried guilt heavy enough to fill the room. I didn't push her. I knew she needed space to process everything: the betrayal, the fear, the collapse of the life she built on illusions. Still, a mother's heart doesn't harden easily. No matter how deep the wounds ran, I couldn't stop caring. One afternoon, I came into the living room and found Angela sitting on the floor surrounded by old photo albums. She looked up at me with tear-filled eyes. "Mom, do you ever wish I'd been different?" Her question caught me off guard. I sat down beside her. "Different how?" "Less selfish," she said quietly. "Less blind. I thought money would make me happy. I thought Edward's world was what I wanted: fancy dinners, trips, status. I was wrong." I sighed softly. "We all get lost sometimes, Angela. What matters is if we find our way back." She looked down at a photo, Robert holding her as a baby, both of them smiling at the camera. "Dad must hate me for what I did to you." I touched her hand gently. "Your father loved you more than life itself. He'd be disappointed in your choices, not in you." She nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I'm going to fix this, Mom. I'll help the police find Edward. I'll testify if I have to." I smiled faintly. "That's a start." That night, I finally slept peacefully for the first time in weeks. But peace, as I've learned, never lasts long. The next morning, I woke up to a strange sound: the creak of a car door outside. I looked out the window and saw a black sedan parked across the street. A man sat inside, engine off, staring at the house. My gut tightened. When I went to check again a few minutes later, the car was gone. I didn't tell Angela. I didn't want to frighten her. But something in me knew Edward wasn't far. A few days later, the phone rang again. I answered, expecting Mr. Peterson or the detective. Instead, a voice I hadn't heard in months slipped through the line like poison. "Hello, Antonia." It was Edward. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. "What do you want?" I asked sharply. He chuckled softly. "You're a hard woman to find. You've been busy undoing my hard work, haven't you?" "You mean your lies?" I shot back. "Your schemes?" "Oh, Antonia," he said, his tone mocking. "You're smarter than I gave you credit for. But let's not pretend you're innocent here. Your daughter signed those papers willingly. You both benefited from my deals until they fell apart." My grip on the phone tightened. "You used her. You used us." "Maybe," he said coldly. "But you should know, there are people looking for me who won't be as polite as I am. If you care about Angela, tell her to keep quiet. Otherwise, the next time you hear from me, it won't be over the phone." The line went dead. I stood there, shaking, the phone pressed against my ear. Outside, the street was quiet, but the world suddenly felt smaller, darker. I turned slowly toward Angela, who was standing in the doorway, pale and trembling. "Mom," she whispered, "who was that?" I forced a calm smile. "No one you need to worry about." But inside, I knew exactly who it was, and I knew this wasn't over. Edward wasn't just coming back for revenge, he was coming back for what he believed still belonged to him, and he was willing to destroy us both to get it. After that phone call, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house made me jump. Every flicker of light through the curtains made my heart race. I kept seeing Edward's smirking face in the dark corners of my mind. I didn't tell Angela what he'd said. She'd already lost too much sleep. I wasn't going to let fear take what little peace she had left. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that he was watching us. The next morning, I went outside to water the plants, trying to calm my nerves. That's when I noticed it, a single white envelope sticking out of the mailbox. No return address. Just my name, written in the same bold handwriting I recognized from every nightmare. Edward. I took it inside and shut the door before opening it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. You think you can erase me, Antonia? Think again. I built this life, and if I can't have it, no one will. Tell your daughter to keep her mouth shut, or she'll regret it. My hands shook. I didn't know whether to call the police or the detective right away. But something inside me, something fierce and protective, took over. I wasn't going to let him scare me. Not again. When Angela came downstairs, she noticed the paper in my hand. What's that? I hesitated. Nothing important, I said quickly, slipping it into a drawer. She frowned. Mom, you're hiding something. Please, don't shut me out anymore. I looked at her, really looked at her. She wasn't the same woman who'd walked back into my life a week ago. The arrogance was gone. The entitlement was gone. What remained was my daughter, scared, broken, but trying. So I told her everything. Her eyes widened as I read the note aloud. Oh my God, she whispered. He knows where we are. I know, I said calmly. But that doesn't mean we run. We've run enough. This time, we face him. She shook her head. No, Mom. He's dangerous. If he's desperate, there's no telling what he'll do. I walked to the window, peering through the blinds. The street was empty, but I could feel the tension in the air, heavy and real. He won't scare me, I said. He's already taken everything once. He won't take what's left. That evening, I called Detective Harris and explained everything, the phone call, the letter, the threats. He sighed heavily. Mrs. Brooks, you did the right thing calling me. We've been tracking Edward's movements. He's in town, using aliases, but we're closing in. Keep your doors locked and don't go anywhere alone. When I hung up, I sat in silence. Angela was pacing, biting her nails. Mom, she said finally, if anything happens, if he comes here. I stopped her. Nothing's going to happen. Not this time. I've lived long enough to know one truth, Angela, you don't let fear win. You face it. That night, neither of us slept. The house was wrapped in darkness and quiet tension. I kept the porch light on, the curtains half drawn, the phone beside my bed. Around midnight, I thought I heard something, a soft crunch of gravel outside, followed by the faint creak of the gate. My breath caught. I reached for the lamp switch, my hands trembling. Then, through the window, I saw it, the shadow of a man standing near the porch, watching the house. I didn't need to see his face to know who it was. Edward had found us. And as his shadow lingered under that dim porch light, I realized this wasn't just about revenge anymore, this was the night everything would come to an end, one way or another. I stood completely still, my heart pounding so loud I could almost hear it echo through the house. Through the thin curtain, I could see his shadow standing by the porch, tall, confident, motionless. Edward. The man who charmed my daughter, stolen my home, and destroyed my peace was now standing less than 10 feet away. I took a slow breath and turned off the lamp beside me. The room sank into darkness. Angela was asleep in the guest room, or so I hoped. I didn't want her waking up to this nightmare. Another soft sound, a creak, this time closer. He was walking toward the front door. Every instinct told me to call the police, but I didn't. I wanted to look him in the eyes. I wanted to see the face of the man who had underestimated me. I picked up Robert's old revolver from the drawer, the one he'd kept locked away for years, just in case. My hands trembled, but not from fear. From control. From purpose. A sharp knock echoed through the house. Antonia, his voice called softly through the door. I know you're awake. Open up, I just want to talk. I froze, listening. His tone was calm, almost gentle, but underneath it was something darker, something cold and calculated. I stepped closer to the door but didn't open it. There's nothing left to say, Edward. Come on now, he said with a low chuckle. That's not true. I just need a few minutes. Then I'll be out of your hair forever. Like you were out of my husband's accounts? Out of my daughter's life? I snapped. He sighed. You don't understand, Antonia. I didn't plan for things to go this way. But the people I worked with, they're not forgiving types. They want money, and if I don't deliver, they'll come for all of us. I tightened my grip on the gun. Then maybe you should stop running and face them, just like you should have faced the truth a long time ago. The porch light flickered. Through the curtain, I saw him move closer, his face now half lit by the glow. He looked thinner, paler, and desperate. But those eyes, those cold, snake-like eyes, still had the same arrogance. Antonia, he said quietly, please. You have no idea what's coming. I can protect you, and Angela. But I need money to make that happen. You still have access to your husband's investments, don't you? I laughed bitterly. There it is. The truth. You don't want to protect us, you just want another handout. He slammed his palm against the door. You owe me, old woman. None of this would exist without me. I flinched at the noise, but my voice didn't shake. You're right about one thing, Edward. None of this would exist without you, this pain, this chaos, this mess. But it ends tonight. Just then, I heard movement behind me. Angela's voice, trembling, Mom? Edward froze. Angela, he said softly, his tone suddenly changing. Baby, it's me. Please, open the door. She stepped beside me, her face pale. No, she whispered. I'm done listening to your lies. Edward's voice hardened. Angela, if you don't help me, they'll kill me. They'll kill you. Then maybe, I said quietly, raising the gun, you should have thought of that before you destroyed our lives. The silence that followed was deafening. Then, tires screeched outside, and red and blue lights filled the front window. The detective had arrived. Edward turned to run, but it was too late. Officers surrounded the porch. Angela clung to me, sobbing as they dragged him away in handcuffs, his face twisted with rage and disbelief. I exhaled slowly, lowering the gun. My hands finally stopped trembling. But even as Edward disappeared into the flashing lights, I knew it wasn't over, because some wounds don't heal with justice, only with forgiveness. When the sirens faded and the night grew still again, I felt my legs give out beneath me. Angela helped me to the couch, her hands shaking almost as much as mine. Neither of us spoke for a long time. The house felt different, lighter somehow, as if the very walls had been holding their breath all this time. Finally, she whispered, "Is it really over?" I looked at her, my daughter, broken but breathing. For him, yes. For us, not yet. She nodded, wiping her tears with the back of her sleeve. I thought I was helping him, Mom. I thought love meant loyalty, even when it hurt. I reached out and held her hand. Love isn't supposed to hurt, Angela. It's supposed to guide you, not blind you. She looked at me, her voice trembling. Do you think Dad would forgive me? That question cut deeper than any wound Edward had left behind. I glanced at the photograph of Robert on the mantel, his kind eyes, that soft smile that could melt away any anger. He already has, I said quietly. And so have I. Angela broke down completely then, sobbing into my shoulder, her body trembling with guilt and relief all at once. I held her, rocking gently like I did when she was a child, whispering, "It's over now. You're home. You're safe." The next morning, Detective Harris stopped by to finalize the statement. He looked exhausted but relieved. "You did the right thing, Mrs. Brooks," he said. "Edward's facing multiple charges: fraud, forgery, embezzlement. He won't see daylight for a long time." Angela stood behind me, arms crossed tightly. "I'll testify if you need me to." He nodded. "We might. But for now, both of you should rest." After he left, I made us breakfast, pancakes, just like old times. The smell of butter and syrup filled the air, soft and comforting. For a moment, I almost felt like life was normal again. Angela smiled faintly between bites. "You know," she said, "I never realized how much peace I traded for wealth." I chuckled softly. "Peace is the richest thing you can own, darling. Money just hides the noise until it runs out." Later that afternoon, we walked to the beach, the same one where Robert and I used to take her when she was little. The sun was setting, turning the sky into a canvas of gold and pink. The waves rolled in, slow and steady, like time itself forgiving us. Angela slipped her arm through mine. "Mom," she said quietly, "I want to make things right. I want to rebuild what I broke, not just with you, but with myself." I smiled. "Then start with truth. It's heavier than gold, but it'll carry you farther." We stood there, watching the water shimmer under the fading light. For the first time in a long time, I felt calm, not because the storm was gone, but because I'd learned how to stand through it. When we returned home that night, the air was cool, the stars bright. I looked around the house, at the family photos, the old clock, the quiet warmth of the living room, and whispered to myself, "You did it, Robert. She's home again." Angela hugged me from behind. "Mom," she said softly, "thank you for not giving up on me." I turned and smiled, tears in my eyes. That's what mothers do. But just when I thought peace had finally returned, a letter arrived the next morning, with a familiar signature, and a message that would reopen a door I thought was closed forever. The morning light slipped through the curtains, soft and golden, the kind of light that usually promised peace. But that peace didn't last long. When I opened the front door to grab the newspaper, I noticed another envelope lying on the porch. White. Thin. No return address. For a second, I froze. It felt like déjà vu. I picked it up, my fingers trembling slightly, and went inside. Angela was still asleep, so I sat by the kitchen window and opened it carefully. Inside was a single page, handwritten in neat, slanted letters. "Antonia, if you're reading this, it means I've already paid for everything I've done. But before the world writes my story for me, I need you to know the truth. The money, the lies, the deals, it didn't start with greed. It started with fear. The people I worked for, they weren't investors. They were dangerous. And when I realized what I'd gotten into, it was too late. I used Angela's name to protect her. I used your house to pay them off. But I never meant for any of it to touch you. I'm sorry, truly. Tell Angela she deserved better than the man I became. Edward. I sat there, staring at the words, unsure whether to feel relief or anger. He was gone, that much was clear. But even in his final words, he'd managed to twist the truth into something that hurt. Protect her? He'd nearly destroyed her. And yet, as I read the letter again, something inside me softened. Maybe it was the exhaustion. Maybe it was age. Or maybe it was the simple fact that no matter how dark people become, they all start with good intentions until life bends them the wrong way. When Angela came downstairs, her hair messy and her eyes still tired, I slid the letter across the table. It's from him, I said quietly. She hesitated before reading it. As her eyes moved across the page, tears welled up. He wrote this? I nodded. She took a shaky breath. I loved him once, Mom. I really did. I thought he was my future. I reached for her hand. Then let him stay in the past. That's where he belongs. She nodded, folding the paper slowly. What should I do with it? I looked out the window at the sea in the distance, calm and endless. Burn it, I said. Let it go. That evening, we went to the beach again. Angela brought the letter, tucked inside a small tin box. The sun was setting, painting the horizon in gold. She knelt by the water's edge, opened the box, and set the letter inside. Then, using a match, she lit it. The flame flickered for a moment before the wind carried the ashes away, scattering them across the waves. Neither of us spoke. We just stood there, two women bound by loss, forgiveness, and the quiet understanding that life doesn't always give you justice, sometimes it gives you closure instead. When we walked back home, Angela slipped her arm through mine. You think Dad's watching us right now? I smiled softly. He always is. As the last light faded behind us, I realized something. This wasn't the end of my story. It was just the start of hers, one built not on secrets or sorrow, but on truth. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel old. I felt free. Because sometimes, life doesn't give you a perfect ending, it just gives you the strength to write one yourself. And just like that, Granny's story comes to an end. Not with revenge. Not with triumph. But with peace. Through heartbreak, betrayal, and loss, she found something far greater, forgiveness. Because sometimes, the real victory isn't in winning the fight, it's in learning when to let go. Her home may have been taken, her heart may have been broken, but her spirit, that quiet, unshakable strength, never left her. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to breathe, and remember someone in your life who deserves forgiveness, even if they never asked for it. Because just like Granny, we all carry letters from our past. But only courage can turn those letters into lessons. Thank you for watching Granny's Untold Stories. If you felt her journey, drop a red heart in the comments to let us know you were here till the end. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, because sometimes, the stories that heal us are the ones we least expect. Until next time, take care of your heart, and never stop believing in second chances.